So, how are options priced then? We've been talking a lot about implied volatility and the expected move. We're talking about using options to create the probabilities we want better than 50-50. Stocks, the best they can do by themselves is give you a 50-50 chance of making money, but with options, we've not only showed you how to be right 95% of the time, but we've also, talked about how with options you can not only continue to reduce your basis, continue to stack the odds in your favor, but also again get as far away from 50-50 as you want. So we kind of jumped a little bit ahead of ourselves and we need to take a step back, but we need to talk about this only after we talked about the expected move and implied volatility. So the question we want to answer is, well, how are options priced? Like, where the hell do they get their price from? Remember, with stocks, they try to get their price from forward earnings and the risk-free rate of return. What about options, though? Like, what about options? So the options are priced off of two things. So the first thing they're priced off of is their distance away from the current price of the stock. So we go back into the platform. Right now we're in SPY, which is the S&P 500 Index ETF. And let's get 8 here right now. So in 34 days is the September monthly expiration, right? If we look at, let's say, the 242 strike. Right now, if SPY is at 244.12, the 242 strike is always going to be $2.12 away from the current price of the stock, as long as it's still 244.12, right? So it's always a static number. So again, their distance away from the current price of the stock is static. So again, this 248 call up here is always going to be, $3 and let's see my math, 88 cents away from the current strike of the stock, as long as it stays the same. So there's nothing that really changes there. It's very, very static. But the change in the big fluctuation that happens in options pricing is by implied volatility. So we just spent like 2 hours talking about it. Again, implied volatility is the expected move over the course of 1 year in a stock, ETF, index, whatever it is. And again, we just showed you in the last videos. If you haven't looked, you need to go back and watch this in chronological order, because we just showed you in the last videos exactly how to find that piece of data for every single stock out there. So we have one where the distance away from the current price is pretty static, but implied volatility changes all day, every day. News comes out that makes the expected move larger. Mergers and acquisition come out that make the expected move larger. And the truth is, right now, the 242 put expiring in 34 days in SPY is trading for about $3.12. It says 312 and a half, but that's only because it's the pyramid price. And this is again on a Saturday, so these markets are way wider because the market's closed. So we're trading right now. Actually, we'll use this one because this one's right in the middle. So the 248 call is trading for $1.26, right? So that's right in the middle of a $1.25 bid and a $1.27 ask. It's trading for $1.26, and that is only happening because the current implied volatility in SPY is about 82, excuse me. That's the only reason why. If the implied volatility were to be double that, let's call it 31, rather than this call being worth $1.26, it'd probably be worth double that. Probably about, let's see, $2.52. That's some quick math right there. It'd be worth double that. Again, it's the same distance away from the price of the stock. Rather, implied volatility is actually the one that is changing all the time. So implied volatility really at the end of the day is what options are priced off of. So that's really it. So it doesn't really matter so much their distance away from the current price of the stock, again because that is always a static number while price does fluctuate. If it's $4 away from the current price, it's always going to be $4 away. However, implied volatility is the coefficient there, where if it's $4 away and implied volatility is double what it is now, the price of the option is going to be double. So these are how options are priced off of. So when options come out there and they're tradable all day, every day, this is what they're priced off of. And again, it's mostly implied volatility. Now, options settle off of something else. So they're priced off of the expected move or implied volatility. But when they settle or when they expire, they get priced off something else. So they get priced off their distance from the current price of the stock, so very similar to how they are priced. But then they are ultimately, their settlement price is based off of the realized volatility. So the realized volatility is the actual move. So it's the actual move, not to be confused with the expected move. So we have implied volatility. We have implied volatility, which is what options are initially priced off of, and realized volatility is what they settle off of, right? So implied volatility is the expectation of the result, and the realized volatility is the actual result. So that's pretty much it. Again, options are priced off of the expected move. Options settle and get their final price off of the actual move or realized volatility, right? So again, they're priced all along off of the expectation or the expected move, which is implied volatility. And then their final price is determined by the realized move, right? So again, we want to find out here, and I want to look here and see how those two compare to see if there's any advantage in here. Remember, I kind of hinted a little bit earlier how implied volatility is, there's a big edge built in there. So I'm going to go to a chart on the next page, but just don't try to get crazy jumping ahead. I want to explain everything bit by bit. So let me apologize about this logo. I had my old logo on here. It's ugly. I put Market Hero on here because that's a sweet logo and it's nice. But anyway, let me explain what this chart is. Again, we're comparing implied volatility, which is the expected move. Implied volatility on this chart is seen as the VIX. Remember, the VIX is the implied volatility or the one-year expected move for the S&P 500. We're comparing that expected move, which is how options are priced, to the realized volatility, which is the actual move. The realized volatility or the actual move is determined by the blue color, the blue line on this chart. And again, the realized volatility is the closing price or the expiration price for options. So what we're doing here effectively is saying, let's compare the expected move, which is what options are priced off of, to the actual move, which is what options settle to. And if I look at, and I'm going to give you guys about 10 seconds here of a little bit of silence, because this is what will turn you into a millionaire right here. This is what will turn you into a market hero if you can understand this. I'm going to give you 10 seconds of silence to take a look. Remember, in the orange, we're looking at the expected move. In the blue, we're looking at the actual move. I'll come back in about 5-10 seconds and we'll talk about it. So when I look at this, it's clear as day as to what I see. If I look at the chart, I see an orange line that for the most part, not the whole time, but for the most part, is greater in value than the blue line. Of course, right around 2000, the blue line is greater value than the orange line. Right around 2008, the blue line is definitely greater value than the orange line. Also here in 2011, the blue line, which is the actual move, is greater than the expected move. So this is what I'm looking at. And when I see this, I go, well, shit. Clearly, and this is a 20-year study here, clearly the expected move is overstated to the actual move. Let me repeat that. I'm probably going to repeat that like 10 times because it's such a big deal. When I look at this chart, I see an orange line that represents the expected move, typically greater than the blue line, which represents the actual move. The orange line represents how options are priced. The blue line represents how options close and their settlement price. So when I look at this, it's clear as day to me that the expected move, represented just by the orange line, is greater than the actual move, just represented by the blue line. Now, the orange line here is the expected move. The blue line is the actual move. And if we remember, we go back, options are priced off of implied volatility, and they settle off of realized volatility, the actual volatility. So what does this mean to you guys? This is a good one. What does this mean to you? To me, again, this means that implied volatility, or the expected move, is greater than actual volatility, or the actual move. Options are priced off of what? Options are priced off their expected move. However, it looks like their actual move is less than their expected move. This is really interesting. So this is the edge that I've been talking about. This is the edge that I've been talking about. This is what will turn you into a millionaire. This is the edge I'm talking about. I'm talking about if options are priced off of the expected move, and then they settle based off their actual move. If the expected move is greater than the actual move, options are overpriced to their settlement price. Or, more bluntly put, options are overpriced, period. And the way we can tell that is by comparing the expected move, or what options are priced off of, to the actual move, or what they settle to. That's it. It's clear as day right here, at least from 1990 to 2011, that options, not all the time, because we see here in the 2000s, there are definitely some times where the actual move is greater than the expected move, in which case options are underpriced. And again here in 2008, 2009, but for the most part, we see very consistently, about 80% of the time is what the numbers actually come out to be, where the expected move is greater than the actual move. Thus, options are overpriced. Now let's look at another one real quick here. This one is broken down to a little bit less time so you could see a little bit more. So what we're looking at here is the same type of data. So we have the implied volatility in black. So we have the expected move, or what options are priced off of, in the black. And then in the orange, we have the actual move. So again, it's clear as day. There are definitely times in 2011 where the actual move is greater than the expected move. Same thing in 2015, same thing in 2008. But for most of the time, all of 2007, same with 2009, all the way up to 2011, then 2012, pretty much through 2016 and 17, the expected move is overstated and greater value than the actual move. And if options are priced off of the expected move, it means options are overpriced. And again, by about 80% of the time, options are overpriced. So this is it, guys. This is the edge that I've been talking about. This is what will turn you into a market hero. So again, click. Implied volatility versus realized volatility. We just showed you a lot of proof about this. Visualized from a 20-year period here. A 20-year period where consistently the expected move, represented here by the orange line, implied volatility, the VIX, has been greater value than the actual move here represented in blue. That means that in that time when that's happening, options are overpriced. And again, broken down into only a 10-year period instead of a 20-year period. You can see the black line is the expected move, and the orange line is the actual move. If the expected move is greater than the actual move, options were overpriced, because options are priced off the expected move. And if the actual move is how they settle, right, then again, options have been overpriced. So let me ask you this, a little bit of teaser to the next video. Do you want more proof than this video? Do you want more proof than these charts? Well, we're going to show you some more proof in the next video of an actual trade that will show you how much profit can be made just by betting that the expected move is going to be greater than the actual move. So I'll see you on the video.